Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. So in this live stream, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about escaping a hostile crowd. Now, when I'm doing these Prepping 101 videos, yes, okay, I accept I've done an aliens video, and that's highly unlikely. But what I want to do is I do want to ground these Prepping 101 videos into reality and give you guys real world experience of the most likely things that I feel, excuse me, the most likely scenarios, for example, that you guys are going to find yourselves in. Now, if you live in the United Kingdom, like this is going to be a high probability, right? This is a high probability. The probability that you are going to be fighting a pitched battle, Lord of the Rings style, although listen, it's getting closer every day, right? By the day. The reality is that's not very likely. The likelihood of you being caught in a hostile crowd, between a hostile crowd, between two fighting hostile crowds, maybe you come out of a shop and all hell's broken loose. These things become, the probability of these things goes up, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. I'm going to give you guys the most likely probability, right? And I'm going to tell you what to do in that scenario. I need to caveat this: no two situations will be the same. Each and every time, things that you're going to have to improvise, adapt, and overcome on the ground. But ultimately, if you have an understanding of how to get out of a hostile crowd, you know, you can think and adapt on your feet, right? Well, I hope you guys can. You should be able to. So just, picture this. And there's 1,000,001 different scenarios that you guys could put yourselves in, right? So you're on the high street, you've gone out, you're with your girlfriend, you're with your kids, whatever, you're grabbing something to eat, you're heading home from work, whatever, right? Like I said, there's 1,000,001 different scenarios. Suddenly you start hearing shouts, crowd surge, and what started as a protest turns ugly. Bricks start flying, chants turn to threats, and you are caught right in the middle. You're on foot with no easy way out. And no, I don't mean Rocky style, although there won't be an easy way out. We live in turbulent times in the United Kingdom. If anybody thinks we do not live in turbulent times in the UK, please put that in the chat, because there's so many divisional, there's so much division. And what I'm talking about here is, I'm going to give you guys how to get out of that hostile crowd. Now, this video is for everyone, right? This video is literally for everyone, whether you deem a hostile crowd to be people waving Palestinian flags, or whether you deem a hostile crowd to be people waving Union flags, shouting, "God save the Queen," either one, right? The way you get out of them is the same. So a hostile crowd in the United Kingdom, it's being able to escape, understanding how to escape a hostile crowd in the United Kingdom right now. It's not some sort of survivalist fantasy like going and being able to find, hunt, and process squirrels. Right, I know a lot of you guys are going on to survival courses where you go into the wilderness and you set little snares for rabbits and squirrels. Listen, I'm going to let everybody into a little secret. Unless the aliens are coming, right? That sort of stuff's going to be, it's not going to be used. It's just a fantasy, right? What I'm talking about now, ladies and gentlemen, is grounded in reality. And it's an absolute necessity for you and your loved one, to keep yourself and your loved one safe. We've seen tensions in the United Kingdom building up year after year after year after year. From the streets of Southport, alleys of Belfast, Newcastle, Liverpool, Manchester, London, Birmingham, the Rotherham, whatever those wars, whether that's migration wars, whether that's cultural wars, whether that's economic, social, doesn't really matter. If you guys get caught one wrong turn and you could find yourself in the crosshairs of a hostile crowd, you could find yourself in that actual chaos. So why bother? Why bother? I know some guys, like some of the people on the chat, and they're saying "Oh, Sean, we've got to fight." Listen, if you think you can fight your way through a hostile crowd of 400 or 500 people, you do you, right? Literally, you do you. I know I've said this before. One of my friends was in Baghdad, and there was a hostile crowd. And he was with I said he was Chinese, but he might have been the guy who he was with. He might have been Japanese. I don't know. He was Chinese or Japanese, right? And there's a hostile crowd. So he's there, white as you like. He had this Chinese or Japanese guy with him, and this hostile crowd's coming towards him. He's dilly swizzled, right? So what he did, he just went up to the first guy, smiling, shook his hand. He just said, Habibi, salam alaikum. He shook his hand. He was patting him, shook his hand. Went to the next guy behind him. Oh, shook his hand. And that's literally how he worked his way through that crowd. He had a pistol on him, right? He had a, I don't know, Glock. I think he had a 19 or a 17. I don't know. When I spoke to my friend afterwards, I was like, mate, he said, yeah, I know. I said, what was you thinking? And you know what he was thinking? The one thought that was going through his head, I wish I didn't have my pistol. That's what he was thinking. So that's real world. Guys, that's real world. So, you know, in these videos when I come up and everybody's talking about weapons and stuff, guys, honestly, it's pointless. Unless you can use them legally as part of a, you know, a squad, section, platoon, company, they're pointless. Nobody's going solo Rambo. You need to be able to, you know, come together and, you know, form militias, I guess. Anyway, so there's several, you know, there's lots of different scenarios, right, in the United Kingdom, how you would end up in that hostile crowd. You know, right, you know, look at the rise in tensions that we've endured just the last couple of years. August 24, Southport stabbings caused nationwide riots, right? We've had mobs attacking mosques, torching hotels. Oh, like I don't need you guys. I don't need to keep repeating this sort of stuff. You guys know that we have these tensions, right? 61% of the United Kingdom think there will be large-scale riots. I think it was more, actually. Anyway, there's a large percentage of people that think that there will be large-scale civil unrest, civil war in the next 5 years. Now, what we're seeing here are cycles of disorder. Literally, these cycles of disorder. And riots, protests, mass gatherings that turn ugly. These aren't, you know, they're not isolated blips anymore. They are symptoms of deeper rifts, amplified by social media and division. So if you're in the city centre, you know, in a city centre, and you get that herd mentality kicks in, that's what we're going to talk about in today's live stream, guys. Okay, that is literally what, and I'm going to try and keep this as short as possible because there's, I think tomorrow there's a new law that may be passed, and that may be that may mean nobody can criticize Islam. So that's an Islamophobia law that may be, it may get passed tomorrow. So I think I'm going to come on to, I might come back on and do a really short, you know, do a really short live stream on that. Wee Babbo is saying a super soldier would easy deal with a hostile crowd. Listen, guys, you can absolutely do that. You can absolutely do that. You know, if you think, the light's coming in, right? If you think you can, you know, you can go full John Wick, that's on you. That's on you, right? I'm absolutely not recommending you do that. Yatagaratsu is saying, let me start off whilst Raven finishes lunchtime cider. UK law says you are allowed to defend yourself with reasonable force. A crowd coming at you. Pretty much, right, okay. I do know. I don't think that's reasonable force, guys. I don't think that's reasonable force. Amir the Cricket is saying, can't criticize Islam. It's already here. What the world is Islamophobe? Listen, guys, there's a law, and I think it's going to get passed tomorrow in the United Kingdom. I don't know enough about it to be able to give comment right now, but there is an Islamophobia law, and that's due to be passed, I think, tomorrow, which would mean that nobody in the United Kingdom is allowed to criticize Islam, and if you do, then you would be, you know, I guess, arrested. So Let's nobody get arrested, guys. Let's all stay out of prison. Emma Watts is saying, I feel sick and disabled. Which country would be safe for me to take refuge in? Antarctica. Antarctica is the place, guys. Antarctica, if you can deal with the aliens. Right. Let me get on to this, ladies and gentlemen, because I do want to keep this, I do want to try and keep this live stream down to a minimum. So imagine the scene, right? Imagine the scene. You know, tensions are running high across the United Kingdom from far right unrest to heated protests over everything from immigration, climate control. That's something you have in the house, right? Climate, what is it? Extinction Rebellion, all sorts of crazy things happening, right? So imagine the scene, whatever that scenario is. I'm just going to talk through this now. And again, I need to keep caveating, right? There's no two scenarios going to be the same. I just gave you guys a scenario, right? Where my man, he was armed. I've just given you guys a scenario there where my friend, he came into that scenario and he was armed. He had, I don't know, Glock 17 with maybe 3 mags, whatever. I don't know, 45 rounds. And all he kept thinking was, I wish I didn't have this Glock. Because if you've got a Glock, people are going to be like, hang on a minute, why is that guy rolling with a 9? So first of all, you know, like anything, right? Okay. Try and get yourself some prevention's better than a cure, right? You know, prevention is better than a cure, right? So try and prevent it rather than have a cure. So situational awareness, try and avoid being in those situations. And this comes back to, you know, what I've done before on previous videos with, you know, hibernate, relocate, evacuate. Try and get out of there. However, you know, so I understand some things may not be the case. If you go near, you know, these potential hotspots, city centres, London, Manchester, wherever, Birmingham, you know, let people know that you're going. You know, just have a full charge on your phone. Maybe one of those little backup battery packs. Dress neutral, all right? You know, I always dress neutral. Look how neutral I am today, ladies and gentlemen. Look how neutral I am today. But I'm wearing running shoes. So you see people leave the house, right, dressed like Christmas trees. I don't know why you do that. Literally, I don't know why you do that. You're wearing your big shiny jacket that says, like, I don't know, your expensive brand on it. Listen, maybe this is me having too much time in the military and working overseas. I don't know why anyone would dress elaborately, right? Peacocking, I think it's called. I don't know why you do that. I would always wear, from now on, everyone, right, buy clothes that are nondescript. What do I mean by that? Nondescript clothes. Oh, what was he wearing? Oh, he had this massive Nike hoodie on. It was white and it said Nike in pink or whatever. Avoid flashy clothes, political symbols, anything that would make you stand out. Try and always wear shoes that you can run in, right? If you can run in your shoes, fine. If you've got like these, what are they called? Crocs. Blocks are the glasses, aren't they? You know, if you go out in Crocs, how fast can you run in Crocs? One of the girls, she said, oh, Daddy, I can put these in sports mode. I said, go on then. And like, there's a little thing on the back and she put it up. I said, go on then, run in them. I can't, Daddy, I'm getting blisters. Now, if you're traveling in groups, fine. If you're traveling solo, fine. You know, you just need to be aware. Traveling in groups has its problems. Traveling in solo has its problems. Now, if I tell you guys to carry a bug out bag, right? Ladies and gentlemen, you're all going to have to carry a bug out bag. It's not going to work. I know you guys are not going to listen to me, right? I know 100% you guys are not going to listen to me. My staff in Syria, when I used to work in Syria, I used to make my staff carry a bug out bag with them all the time. All the time, I would make them carry a bug out bag. I could do that, right? They were my staff. You know, they were literally my staff. I tell them what to do and they do it. I can't do that to you because you're not going to do it, right? So what I'm going to give you guys is maybe some practical advice. Try and have everyday carry items, EDC carry items, you know. Maybe in your wallet, that's one of those, I don't know, like, you know, those little, what do them? Is it the Swiss Army knife that do them? I think it is. So whatever company do Swiss Army knife, they make like a little credit card thing. And in that, you get like a little torch, you get a pick, you know, it's like a little thing, right? Maybe you want to, you know, start carrying a torch, you know, a pair of something, right? Everyday carry items, but make sure you carry them every day. And don't, you know, you don't have to go, you know, the thing with everyday carry items is that it has to be sustainable, right? Because nobody's going to carry a bug out bag every day with them. It's not going to happen. You're going to forget it. So what's the point? But try and carry it. And whatever those items are for you, it's all going to be, you know, it's all going to be relevant for you. Maybe it's an extra phone charger, you know, one of those battery packs. They're really useful. You know, whatever it is, you guys are going to have to think of that yourself. Now, if you do get yourselves caught in the thick of it. So I'm talking about now, you know, you come out of a shop, you're in the middle of a hostile crowd, right? The first things first, right? In all circumstances, don't panic. Don't scream and wave your arms in the air like you just don't care. Poker face. Stop, pause, react. So stay calm and assess. You may not have that much time to assess. One thing I will say, right? Smile. Smile at the bad guys, right? If these guys are coming towards you, right? Picture the scene, right? Picture the scene. You've just come out of a shop or whatever, or you're in a doorway and the crowd is coming down and oh my God, they're gonna get here close. They're gonna be here. They're gonna be here. They're gonna be here. That crowd are not looking for you. The crowd are not looking for you, right? So stay calm. Try and think how you can get out of there. If there's a back door in the shop, go through it. But if you find yourself in that crowd, right? You know, if you find yourself in that crowd for whatever reason, you know, you can't get out of it, all right? Smile, all right? Don't be aggressive to anyone. Move with the flow of traffic. Move with the flow of the foot flow, right? So move in the direction of travel. Go chanting with them. Chant whatever they're chanting. You're trying to blend into that crowd, all right? But move slightly slower, and let people overtake you. And what you're looking for, you're trying to look ahead now. You're trying to look ahead and you're trying to come out to a flank, to the left or to the right. So go with the traffic. You might have your kids with you. Can you imagine how terrified you'd be? Can you literally imagine how terrified you'd be, guys? If you're there, you've got 1, 2 kids maybe. Go with the flow. They're all chanting, they're screaming, they're shouting. Go with that flow. You want to be looking left and right to try and find a street or an alleyway or somewhere you can go, right? Don't push left or right until you can see a place, right? Because imagine the flow of traffic. So I keep saying traffic. Imagine the foot flow, right? The foot flow, you're on a street. Just try and visualize it. You're going down a street, hostile crowd, you're in it now. You can't get out of it. You can start shouting. Listen, I know some of you guys on the chat, you know, kung fu ninjas and 500 guys. You know, it'd be easy for you guys to take on 500 guys. I would not recommend that, right? Unless you're very competent. In fact, I wouldn't recommend that at all. So go with the flow of the foot flow, right? If you decide for whatever reason you want to push left without seeing your exit, and your exit's over to the right, it's going to be a bad day, right? Because you're going to be over the left and then you're going to go past it because you can't really stop and run back. So you're trying to do 2 things, basically. You're trying to let the crowd overtake you without looking like you're trying to let the crowd overtake you. And you're trying to push to a flank to push out of the, you know, to push out of the flow of the traffic or get to the back where it's less dense. if you guys look at crowd mentality, so look, guys, when I do these videos, right, I've done, well, I think I've done every job in public order. So by public order, I mean when the military come in and they're doing crowd control and they've got the baton shields and they're running around, you know, with the sticks. I've done all of those. I've been on the big shield, the little shield. I've been in the snatch squads. I've been in civilian clothes trying to make covert arrests in the crowds. I've done it. I mean, we didn't have facial recognition back then, but I've been sat in the back in a van with a camera, trying to identify ringleaders, and then you tell the snatch squad, the teams in the crowd to go and make arrests. So I've done all those jobs, right? And you get this crowd mentality, right? You get the guys right at the front of the crowd, and they're like your infantry. You know, they're the ones who are like the hardened, yeah, let's go. And then the further back you get like the stragglers, right? You get the stragglers, those ones who are like, yeah, we're just going to be here, but we're probably not going to get involved unless everyone else is. That's where you want to be. That's where you want to be, guys. You know, you want to try and slow down, let people gradually overtake you, or peel off left or right. And it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be an alleyway. It could be a shop. It could be it could be anything, basically. That's what you're trying to do, right? Anywhere that you can. Now, how do you handle, in these situations, how do you handle harassment, threats, you know, violence, physical violence against you? You avoid it. You don't, look, you know, and I know a lot of people are saying you should fight and always fight. No. If you start melee in a crowd, in a crowd, it's not going to end well for you, mate. It's not going to end well for you, especially if you're on your own. You can take my advice and you can screw it up and think, you know what? I'm hard as nails. You know, I'm hard as nails. I've watched loads of kung fu movies. You know, I'll be able to fight my way out of that crowd. Absolutely fine. Good. You know, I wouldn't recommend it. That's on you. You've got to stay non-confrontational. Don't argue. Don't swear. Don't flap. Don't get your phone out and film. If someone's aggressive to you, just try and avoid it. Avoid eye contact. You might take a smack in the head. Just let it ride, guys. Let it ride. Let it ride. Let it go. Just let your task is to get out of that crowd. If you start resisting, right? If you start resisting these heavy crowds, you're going to make things worse. You really will. You will absolutely make things worse. You will make things a lot worse for yourself. Caveat to that is every situation is going to be different, right? I'm giving you guys generic advice. I'm giving you guys generic advice. Yes, of course, there may be situations where you may have no other choice. There may be situations where you have to, cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war. But the generic advice that I'm giving you guys would be, don't make eye contact, be discreet and try and get out of that scenario as quickly as you can. Clearly, you need to protect yourself physically. You may be in a scenario where, people are hurling bricks and, bottles at each other, tear gas, all sorts of crazy stuff. Protect yourself with what you've got. Now, there's going to be 1,000,001 different scenarios, okay? And I wanted to keep this real quick, but these are real scenarios. These are real things that I believe people will find themselves in, especially in the United Kingdom. All you have to do, look at the streets of Birmingham every couple of months. Look at the streets of London every couple of months. We're heading towards the summer. We are. There's always riots and protests in the summer. There's always an incident. There's always people out on the streets wanting to cause havoc and mayhem. We have near-peer adversaries pumping misinformation, fake news into our country, right? And this is driving people, this is driving people into corners. So my advice to you guys in a nutshell, in a snippet is, if you find yourself in that hostile crowd, obviously every scenario is going to be different. If you find yourself in that hostile crowd, Go with the crowd. Go with the grain. Don't try and break grain. Don't try and go cross grain. Try and blend into that crowd as best you can. Remember, those people are not there looking for you. I guarantee you guys, all right? Those people are not looking for Raven. They're not looking for, they're not looking for Raven. They're not looking for any. They are out there protesting. Don't draw attention to yourselves. Let the crowd move with the crowd slowly. Let the crowd overtake you. And one of two things hopefully will happen. You'll find a side street that you can get down, or you will be so far back, you'll just be able to turn around and walk away. Fred Jandy Jong is saying the risk of war is imminent. I think that means, yeah, it is, guys. I think the risk of war is coming, guys. Okay, I think, well, the risk of, you know what? Okay, right. Let's stop, right, and let's say war. I'm going to say war is already here, right? Britain are having soldiers come back in body bags. We are spending billions and billions sending it to Ukraine. There's no way that this war doesn't happen, guys, in Ukraine. Paul is saying, word on street and other sources, martial law and riots, it's coming. Right, Paul, where are you getting this from? Because I've heard this from a few people. Do you know where the source material for that is, mate? Where is that source material, mate? Where is the source material for that? Because I've heard that for quite a few people now. Where did this come from? And look, I don't take anything off the cards now. We're in for a wild ride, guys. We are in for an absolute wild ride. Trevor Pritchard is saying, if you can't beat them, join them and slip away. Absolutely. Look, and people need to get out of this mentality of thinking like, chasse minute. If you find yourselves in one of those situations, your own safety, that's paramount. Literally, if you find yourself in that situation, right? I mean, listen, it's up to you. If you, right, whatever demographic you are, right? If you find yourself in that hostile crowd and you're like, I'll show these, and you want to pull out your, I don't know, you want to pull out your Union flag or your Palestine flag and start chanting, go for it, right? That is totally on you. Your main, excuse me, your main intent is to get out. That's your main intent. Band again is saying, grave man. Yeah, exactly. Do you know what? I didn't say that. Yeah. Be the grey man. You need to blend in and you need to get away as quickly as possible. All right. Trevor Pritchard is saying, yes, Sean, that's what I was thinking. How did we end up in the middle of a riot? Yeah, but look, it happens. It really does happen. It really does happen. I mean, you don't know when these things are going to, first of all, you don't know when these things are going to happen, right? These could be organized. In fact, you know what? I was the other day, like in the summer, right? In the summer, this summer, I was driving. In the summer, I found myself in the middle of one, right? Pro-Palestinian lot. I'd just been to, that shop, what's it called? Decathlon. I'd just been to Decathlon in Sheffield. And I was driving out and I was trying to get on that, I don't know what the name's called. Anyway, I was driving past the train station in Sheffield, right? And the whole road was just saturated in pro-Palestine protesters. It was just saturated. There we go. I literally found myself in the middle of a riot in my car. Well, it wasn't a riot. It was, they'd stopped all the cars and was banging the drums going across the streets. And I was thinking, wow, I only came to Decathlon to try and buy a little tent, one of them little one-man bivvies, but they didn't have any. And I found myself in the middle of it. So, there are so many different scenarios that you could find yourself in the middle of one of those things. I do think, like myself, I didn't know that was going. I didn't check. Of course, I'm saying do as I say, don't do as I do. The Kafir shop. I don't know. Frodo Dirtbaggins. Frodo Dirtbaggins. I don't know what that means, mate. If you give more context, Rod Panhard is saying the big problem with today's social media world is it's made everyone thinking binary. Yes, exactly. You spoke out against A, so therefore you support B. I get this on this channel all the time. I do. I get this on this channel all the time. Listen, I, Raven, right? I support and I stand with space exploration, humans stopping wars against each other and going into space, right? I don't care how that happens. Yatagaratsu is saying martial law is a lot like lockdown, except more curfew based, although probably be fastest understand. But where is this coming from, guys? Where's this rumor coming from? Like, I admit, rumors come out long before the real thing comes out, and I've started to take a lot of notice and pay a lot of attention to rumors. So where's the source material for this, guys? Oh, hang on, I did have a point. What's the last thing? Okay, I can't find it now, but somebody on the comments earlier said, like, and I talked about this. Somebody on the comments said, the problem with social media is if you're not team A, then you're clearly team B. Now, this brings you back to the thing that I always say, if you've got like a cylinder, and you've seen the meme, right? You've got a cylinder, and one guy at one side is pointing at the shadow on the wall, and he's saying, it's a circle. And then the other guy's on the other side saying, he's seeing it from the other perspective, and he's saying, no, it's a square. And they're arguing, but the reality is they're both right. They just need to see the whole picture and see the whole perspective. David King is saying lockdown was a beta test. Yeah. But it was phenomenal, guys. Like, honestly, the lockdown was for me as someone who's objective. Like, I'm an objective thinker, guys. Literally, I think for myself and I do my own shit. I don't follow other people's trends. I don't follow other people's trends, and for me, when I've done videos about this before, I've always talked about the Karen factor, right? The Karen factor. So in lockdown, the Karen factor. That's the thing. That's who you need to be worried about. The Karens. I don't know what a male equivalent of Karen is. I don't. But it was the people overnight. It was the people overnight who, it was just so crazy. Like, people in the local supermarket, right? People in the local supermarket all of a sudden were these like enforcers, right? They were these enforcers. And I couldn't believe it. I could not believe the unobjectivity of people's concepts. Like, people, right, you now have the authority to do this to people. Do it. And that's what I'm really worried about. I think I'm worried about the military and the police to a lot lesser extent to the average, to the average person who's turned into a Karen, right? Because they're the ones en masse you can't deal with. You literally can't deal with them. Especially when they get this mob mentality. I mean, I like the people in the supermarkets. Overnight, they became the world's foremost experts on airborne pathogens. Straight away. And you know this 6 feet thing? Right? So you know how during the lockdowns, right, when you was going to the shop, you had to keep 6 feet apart. Do you guys know where that came from? Somebody made it up. Yeah, somebody made it up, right? So it's baseless, right? It's baseless. It was made up, I think, in New Zealand. They just said, right, everybody has to keep 6 feet apart. Okay, right, why? We just do. I can remember listening to one of the women on the tills explaining and telling people, no, the COVID-19 virus molecule or whatever, I don't know, droplet or whatever it is, I don't know. It can't travel 6 feet. I'm like, what? What are you on about? What on earth are you on about? But she was adamant that it can't travel 6 feet. I mean, I didn't want to get involved with any arguments and say, what about air density? What about temperature? What about wind? Like, what does that even mean? But what I'm getting at here is like, people all of a sudden, they have this authority and then it just, honestly, it just escalates. Milo is saying the male equivalent of a Karen is a Kevin. I did not know that. I did not know that, Milo. Thank you. Everyday school day, guys. Everyday school day. Thank you so much. Santi Todd is saying, tighten your bootstraps. I don't know what that's... Sean was involved in the 5 Special F survive trying to get into the embassy in 2018. I definitely was not. What does that mean? What embassy? What embassy in 2018? I don't know what that means. Band again is saying Bill Gates weed himself to death every day laughing. I bet it, guys, I bet people did. Honestly, I bet people did. I did. Yeah, clap for your carers. Clap. Did everyone clap for their carers? It was so absurd, right? It was so absurd. I was saying, like, hang on a minute, right? Let me get this right. One of two things is happening in the hospitals, right? One of two things is happening, right? Either the hospitals are full of carnage and mayhem, and all the nurses and doctors are doing little TikTok dances down the corridor, while literally at the sides there's people gasping for breath. That's one option. Or the other option, right? There's no one in the hospitals. They're the two options, right? Yatagaratsu is saying NHS is a pox on society at this point. I don't know what that means. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, listen, let's bring this back. Let's bring this back on track because we are talking today about prepping. We are escaping a hostile crowd. Now, this is urban survival, right? This is real world. This is real world stuff, and this is stuff that is likely to happen to you while you're with your family, while you're out, while you're about, and it will happen when you least expect it, right? Absolutely. This will happen when, like everything, right? Everything happens when you least expect it. So, you know, what I'm talking about here, you know, how to escape a hostile crowd. It's not some survivalist fantasy where, you know, you're going to go into the wilderness and you're going to be foraging for berries and nuts, hunting squirrels and wearing loincloths. That is a fantasy, guys, right? That is an absolute fantasy. Unless the aliens come, then you might have to do that. What I'm talking about is grounded in reality, absolute reality. And this is absolutely necessary, you know, for people to keep yourself safe. We've all seen the tensions boiling over day by day, hour by hour, month by month, year after year. And the likelihood that you will be caught in a hostile crowd, it goes up, right? It goes up. So I'll try and run through these things again, okay? So first of all, it starts with, you know, battle preparation. Battle preparation, although, you know, I'm not gonna talk about that. So prevention is better than a cure, right? So avoid the situation if you can. Although, listen, guys, I was caught out in a protest. It wasn't violent. They were just. There was one of the women that came across the road and she was stood right in front of my car, right? She stood right in front of my car. She's looking at me. And I'll be honest with you, I felt sorry for her. I did. I felt sorry for her. And I was like, listen, this is my take, right? This is my take on it, right? On these, you know, this was a pro-Palestine march in Sheffield last year. I got caught up in it. And this woman, she came in the middle of the road. And she had I think she had purple hair, actually, or blue. You know the type, right? And I looked at her and I just wanted to cuddle her and say, come here, stop this silliness. You don't need to do this silliness. And again, you know, she was only there for what, 20 seconds at the most. So if anybody knows Sheffield, right, there's a train. If you're driving from Decathlon, right, out of Sheffield, there's a train station on your right, and then there's like a zebra crossing. In fact, I don't know if it's a zebra. There's a crossing, right? I don't know if it's a zebra crossing, but I think there's traffic lights. I can't remember. I think there is. Now, that's where it was. I was right at the front, right, and they just all swarmed out. No, it was traffic lights. Yeah. It is traffic lights. I was at the traffic lights, and then they just all swarmed out from the train station side. So they was moving right to left. They were banging the drums and waving the Palestinian flags. And this woman, right, she wasn't being aggressive. She was, well, I mean, she'd stopped me. She'd stopped. She was right in front of my car. And I think she didn't have a drum. She had like I don't know, something she was banging. I don't know what it was. And I looked at her, and I don't want to be rude when I'm saying this. I feel awful. I feel awful saying this, right? I was looking at her, and kind of something dropped, right? She didn't. God, I feel awful saying this. My perception of her is she didn't have much going on in her life. She didn't really have, you know, a direction, goals. I think she was one of these people who feels left behind from the world, from society. And rather than get married and have kids because the media is telling her, you know, you're an independent woman, you need to stand up and fight for what's right, she's found this like family. She's found this belonging. And this like, she's found this something that gives her purpose. And that's what, guys, listen, maybe I was thinking too deep into it. And I feel awful saying that because the girl herself, she's a woman actually. You know, I just wanted to say to her, come here, you. Sit down, have a cup of tea, come on. Some biscuits. What's all this silliness about? Pro-Palestine. Do you know what you're protesting for? And it stayed with me, that image, guys. It stayed with me. Anyway. Sorry, guys, I'm going to sideways. As I said, you know, sometimes you get caught out in these things. It just happens, right? Dress neutrally, avoid flashy clothes. And again, with your cars as well. Who has a flashy car? Yeah, don't drive flashy cars, guys. Don't drive flashy vehicles, right? They attract attention. Again, maybe this is just me having too much time doing covert stuff in like the Middle East and stuff. You know, you don't want that attention. You don't want to catch people's eye. That's a bad thing. Don't be driving around like Andrew Tate. Remember, try and dress the same as well. Try and always like, think about your footwear now. Think about your foot wardrobe, your shoe wardrobe. Is it just me or does everyone else have a shoe wardrobe? I have 2 shoe wardrobes, but you know, always like for me, if you can't run in the shoes you're wearing, the footwear you're wearing might be boots. Get rid of them. Literally, don't even have them in the house. If you can't run in them, don't have them in the house. Get rid of them. So I'll run through this real quick. If you find yourself, guys, in a hostile crowd, you can't get out of it. You're there. You're on foot. Stay calm. Stay calm. Don't panic. Move with the flow. Move with the flow of the crowd, a little bit slower than the average walking pace, than their walking pace, right? If they're walking really slow, you walk a little bit slower, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get that crowd to go past you. Remember, they're not looking for you. Chant with them. Chant with them. Chant the chants. Chant the chants, guys. Walk with the crowd. Try and look near mid and far. Try and look near, mid, and far, all right? Look to the flanks. Can you see a runoff? Can you see a runoff? Can you see a street? Can you see a shopping? Can you see somewhere you can go left and right? And if you can, left and right, you can see it, then try and slowly edge your way over that way. Don't rush, don't panic, don't barge, don't make eye contact. Very important, guys. Don't make eye contact with people. If you do become in a confrontation, all right, don't escalate things. Try and get out of that confrontation. Don't argue, swear. You need to get away from those things as quickly as possible. So in a nutshell, guys, I do think that this is there's a high probability that people will get caught in this in the United Kingdom. There is, guys. There's an absolute probability that people will get caught in this in the United Kingdom. Walking stick, handy, useful, but who carries a walking stick? Who carries a walking stick? Bowser is saying, I have looked at Poland and China to tackle Islam, mass deportation, secure borders, money to potential Islamists, restrict Islamic practices in prison. Look, ladies and gentlemen, right? We are already too far gone. We can't do that in the United Kingdom. We cannot do that. We cannot do that in the United Kingdom. 20 years ago, maybe that would have been an option 20 years ago. That is not an option now. That is not an option anymore, guys. It is not an option. Jack Jones is saying, learn how to blend in and stay below the radar. Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, you know what? I'll give you the scenario I gave right at the beginning of this live stream, because some people may have missed it. One of my friends was in Baghdad, and he was doing I don't know, is it PPO or CPO? It's either one. It's a CPO would be close protection officer, or PPO would be personal protection officer. It's the same thing, right? So he was doing PPO or CPO for this guy in he was either Chinese or Japanese. I think he was Chinese, but for some reason I think he may have been Japanese, or it might be Japanese working for the Chinese. I don't know. And he was in Baghdad, right? And they were reporting on something, and a huge hostile crowd, like protesters, right? Hundreds of them. And they were caught. They were literally caught. They had nowhere to go. If any of you guys have been to, Baghdad, they were up by Nista Square, which is not a square, it's a circle. So Nista Square in Baghdad it's a roundabout. And they were filming there for something, or he wanted to look at something, I can't remember, and they were just caught on their own, right? The cars were a distance away for whatever reason. So this hostile crowd's coming towards them now. So can you imagine it? Can you imagine that scene? Paint that picture, right? You're there. You're in a hostile crowd. You're in a hostile country, first of all. People have been having things removed quite often, right? Can you imagine the fear that my mate felt? I don't know if you heard my WhatsApp go then, but that was him. Literally, that was him. And I've not spoken to him for a while, and he's just sent me a message. He must be on. I don't know him. I don't know if he's probably listening. Do you know what? He's probably listening, because he just messaged me then. I don't know if you guys heard the thing go beep beep. Anyway, so moving up, The crowd got closer and closer. My mate, what are you going to do in that situation? White as, he's pale as a ghost. He's clearly not Iraqi. He's not dressed like an Iraqi. So he went up to the first guy, smiled, big smile. Habibi, salam. Shook his hand and gave him a hug. Naturally, the first guy, shook his hand, accepted the hug. And then my mate was looking to the next guy. Smiled, shook his hand. He said he shook everyone's hand to get himself out of that crowd, right? Just shake him. Because if you think about the crowd mentality, right? You want to go kung fu, start throat chopping and going James Bond, absolutely fine, right? That's on you. I'm not recommending that. Crowd mentality, you've got this guy now who's smiling, shaking everybody's hand. It looks like it's a positive thing, right? And he's getting through, and he got through, right? Anyway, I spoke to him like a couple of days later. I was like, we was talking. We was on the rooftop in Baghdad. I think we had a T-bone and a couple of bottles of Beaujolais. We was having a barbecue, and I said, mate, what was you thinking? And he said to me, he said, Sean, all that kept going through his head was he wishes he didn't have his pistol. That's the only thing he kept thinking. I wish I didn't have my pistol. I wish I didn't have my pistol. I wish I didn't have, because in those scenarios, if you're on your own with a little pop gun, what are you going to do with that? You're not going to do anything. And this is why I say to people all the time, everybody's wanting to buy this kit and equipment. It's worthless, guys. It really is worthless, right? Unless you can buy, maintain, repair, use at scale, they're pointless. They are literally pointless. Bowser's is saying Rupert Lowe and Steve Laws should be ministers of deportation. We need to command restore Britain, send leaflets and give speeches. Band again is saying Rupert Lowe disagrees, Sean. He wants a... Listen, I want the Britain of 1995. That's what I want. I want 1995 Britain. I do. 1995 Britain was awesome. Britain in 1995 was awesome. I'll even go in 92 Britain. 92 to 95 Britain. That's what I want, right? It's not... Do you know what? Forget even that. I want Britain in... I want 1846 Britain. I want 1846 Britain, right? I want Britain in 1846. No. It's impossible to do the deportations that we're talking about. I mean, they can try, and it's just not going to happen, guys. It's not going to happen. It really won't happen. It's just the numbers we're talking about are too big. Can you imagine the protests? Literally, can you? Right. Okay. So last year, right? I think we had something like, or was it the year before? I did it yesterday. I did it yesterday. I can't remember the exact numbers. No, it wasn't last year. So the year before, we had like 600,000 people come to the United Kingdom illegally. I think that was the numbers. Sorry. 71,000 boat migrants came 2025, I think, right? I think that was the numbers, right? Okay, just go with that number, right? 71,000. That's just in 1 year. Can you imagine, right, if there are mass deportations, what do you think them 71,000 people are going to do? Do you think they're going to sit there and just wait? It's going to be painful, guys. It's going to be absolutely painful. Yatagatsu is saying mid-90s had crowds of British youngsters getting drunk and laughing with the good times. You don't see that anymore, do you? You do not see that anymore. That is a thing that's gone. That's a thing that's gone. It's too dangerous now. It's too dangerous. Rod Panhard is saying what politicians say to get in power and what they actually do when they get into power are never the same thing. They're not. Rod, they are absolutely not. They are not the same thing at all, mate. I did a video yesterday. It was only a short video. It was like 10 minutes or something. And what I said in that video is, can you imagine, right? Can you imagine any other job, right? Any other job in the world, right? Where you lie on your CV, and once you've got into that job, you don't do anything for 4 years. Literally, that politicians don't have, like, do you realize how bad do you realize, guys, how bad how bad the system is? Like, you could have a member of parliament for wherever, right? Get elected in the elections, and then go and live in, just go to Dubai for 4 years and do nothing. Never do nothing. That's the system that we have. That is the system that we are paying into. It doesn't work. It does not work. In fact, isn't there a councillor? Hang on. I'm sure there's a councillor in Birmingham who doesn't live in Birmingham. She lives in Bangladesh. Hang on. Let me check. Hang on. Here we are. Look, Sabrina Khan. Right, let me share this with you. Right, so this is how bad the system is, guys. Right, I may be getting some of these things wrong. Right, let me share this. London councillor paid 20,000. Yeah, I was right. Bangladesh. London councillor paid 20,000 a year while living in Bangladesh. Sabrina Khan continues to collect her salary despite seeking seat in a national election thousands of miles away. So this woman, Sabrina Khan, is a local councillor in London. She gets paid 20 grand a year, but she lives in Bangladesh and she is running for parliament in Bangladesh. A London councillor has pocketed £20,000 of UK taxpayers' money while campaigning for political office in Bangladesh. Sorry, I was slightly wrong. Sabrina Khan, I don't know if there's any relation to Sabrina Carpenter. No, Sadiq Khan. Sabrina Khan is seeking to represent the Bangladeshi National Party in the I can't pronounce that word, constituency, during National Assembly elections in February. Yet she remains a serving Tower Hamlets councillor in East London, collecting £20,600 a year from the public purse. So there you go, guys. There you go. It turns out our political system, you can just literally, people can come over here. It's just a joke, guys. I can't even explain. I can't even articulate that. I can't articulate that. It's just crazy, right? Roxanne is saying ridiculous. It is. It's absolutely crazy. It was absolutely bonkers. Like, how can you have a serious country, right, where, we've got terrorists. We've literally got convicted terrorists now standing for election in Birmingham. Paul J is saying what Rupert Lowe is proposing will require martial law. I agree, guys. Look. We're fucked. We are fuddly-duddled. Fuddly-duddled. Either way you look at this, there's no easy solution, guys. There's no easy solution. Either we continue as a country with the amounts of mass migration that we have until we are literally all standing shoulder to shoulder, right? Walking down to the like food dispenser to get us like minimum calorific, to get in as minimum calories, or something happens. It's not sustainable and it's not feasible to continue like this. Cindy Archer is saying, I was told even the Prime Minister had the mental breakdown and was in a mental hospital. They would still be Prime Minister now because of discrimination laws changing. I was told that even if the Prime Minister... sorry, I misread that. I thought you said I was told the... I missed that. I missed the even if, right. So what Cindy is saying is she was told that even if the Prime Minister had a mental health breakdown and they were in hospital, they would still be the Prime Minister because of the discrimination laws. Maybe. Jim is saying civil war more likely. It is, guys. It is. The football lads will have to do something. They won't do anything, guys. The football lads are not going to do anything. They're not going to do anything unless it's fight among themselves because a player that they say we won. Tell me how you won. All these football lads, right? Tell me how we won. Honestly, you know these guys that go and watch football at the weekend and spend all their money? Like, we won. All right, what does that mean? Are they going to help pay your gas bill this weekend? Are they going to help, have they got your mortgage payments or your rent this month? It's ridiculous. People need to look after their own families. Right? Forget your football teams. Jack is saying freedom comes with a price. He did, freedom isn't free, ladies and gentlemen. It is not free. Right, listen, guys. I said I was only going to be on short. I've ended up being on for over an hour. I am going to close this live stream down. I'll be back on at 8. And I just wanted to have that as I said it was going to be a prepping marathon because I do think the skill, the ability, the knowledge to escape a hostile crowd is a real thing. I think it's a likely thing. It's a likely, it's a strong possibility that someone on this chat, certainly somebody that follows me, will find themselves in a hostile crowd and have to navigate their way out of it. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, you guys are always fantastic. I'm going to be back on at 8 o'clock UK time. I don't know wherever you guys are around the world. I don't know where they are, but I will be back on at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock UK time, so I don't know, whatever that is. And I'll bid you good afternoon. I'll be back on at 8. I'll see you later. And I'll be relatively sober as well.